Now, what I'm about to tell you is something that I've been considered crazy for. Now, you may also assume that I'm a bit crazy when explaining this story to you, but I promise you it's true. I've never considered myself someone that believes in curses, ghosts, or even the supernatural. But I gotta say, my point of view really changed when I found myself on a road trip from hell last October. I was driving through upstate Pennsylvania aimlessly following back roads in the red-orange leaves that occasionally whipped across the windshield like fire. My phone had no signal, and honestly daylight was bleeding out behind the hills faster than I'd like to admit. That's when I saw the sign. Marrow's Traveling Carnival. One night only. It was propped up on a rusty trailer with peeling red paint, pointing down a gravel path into the woods. I didn't even hesitate. I turned off the main road drawn by some strange magnetism I still can't explain. I figured a carnival would have food, maybe some music, people, a break from the silence that had hung around me all day. But it wasn't what I expected. The carnival sat in a clearing like it had grown there. Crooked tents, an old carousel spinning without riders, and flickering lights dangling from black wires that buzzed like angry wasps. The air honestly smelled like burnt sugar and wet leaves. There were people, I think. Shadows moving behind the ticket booth, faces that turned away the moment I tried to catch their eye. I walked to the entrance and a man in a striped suit greeted me. He was tall. A bit too tall. With arms like lengths of rope and a grin that cut so deep into his cheeks it made my stomach twist. "Welcome," he rasped. "You're just in time for the final ride." I asked how much the ticket was. He just handed me one. It was old, cracked down the middle, and read, "Admit 1, the final attraction." Something told me to leave, but my legs moved forward toward a ride at the far end of the fairground. It looked like a Ferris wheel, except it was a bit enormous for a normal Ferris wheel, towering above the trees like a skeleton's hand reaching for the sky. The cars were worn, iron cages swaying slightly even though there was no wind. There was no line, and no operator either. Still, the gate opened with a loud creak. The cage welcomed me in like it had been waiting all day. The door slammed shut on its own, and I can't lie, that made me jump just a bit. The wheel groaned to life. The wheel groaned to life. At first it was just a normal ride. The fairground stretched beneath me and I could see the tops of tents, the twinkling lights, the tilt-a-whirl spinning slowly. But as I rose higher, sounds began to change. Laughter warped into moaning, music twisted into a slow, agonizing, deranged yell. Then the ride stopped at the very top. The entire carnival below me flickered, literally flickered, like someone was turning reality on and off. And in those dark flashes, I saw things that should not have been there. Bodies hanging from the carousel horses by their necks, the game booths filled with waxy dolls that blinked in unison, the mirror tent crackling like glass with every breath. And the people, they weren't people anymore. They looked up at me with hollow sockets where eyes should be. Then the voice came, not from a speaker, but inside of my own head. "This is where the ride ends, unless you bring another." The wheel began to spin again. Faster and faster, I screamed, but no one looked. Not that they could help. My hands gripped the bars so tightly my knuckles split. The wind screamed louder than I did. I don't even remember getting off. I just remember waking up on the side of the road the next morning, cold and covered in leaves. My car was a few feet away. Doors open, keys still in the ignition. The carnival? Gone. Not a single track in the dirt, but the ticket was still in my hand. Now every October, the same carnival sign shows up wherever I go. Always nearby, always pointing, always glowing a little redder. Honestly, I haven't gone back, but I think I have to. because sometimes at night I hear the Ferris wheel turning outside my window. I smell burnt sugar in the air, and I hear those voices again. One more ride, or someone takes your place. And you reading this now, maybe you'll believe me, maybe you'll laugh. Or, like me, maybe you'll eventually forget. But if you see that sign, please, please don't follow it. And if you hear the music, run far, far away. If I'm being honest here, I used to love road trips. There's something about the silence of the road late at night, the world wrapped in shadows and headlights. My best friend Chris and I had taken dozens over the years. College breaks, cross-country adventures, hell, even aimless weekend getaways to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. But the one we took last October, Colorado to Arizona, through a stretch of New Mexico desert, ruined that experience for me. Started normally, as it always did. We packed snacks like we always had, maybe a playlist or two, and planned to drive through the night to avoid traffic. Around 11 p.m. we were halfway through New Mexico on a desolate, two-lane road slicing through flat desert. The kind of place where the stars look fake and the world feels empty. Chris was driving while I took a little nap in the passenger seat. The hum of the tires and the low music lulled me into the half-dream state. But then the car slowed. "What's up?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. "There's someone on the road." I sat up in the high beams. I figured I'd see something standing maybe a mile away or so. But no, a figure stood ahead, middle of the road, unmoving, about 40 feet away. We slowed to a crawl. At first I thought maybe they were hurt, but as we got closer I realized they weren't trying to wave us down. They were just standing, staring. Still silent, head tilted. It was a man, maybe in his 50s, wearing an old gray hoodie and jeans stained dark at the knees. His face was oddly blank, not angry or anything like that, but also not scared either. Just pale and staring. Chris honked a few times at the man, but he honestly just simply stared and did not flinch. "No, I'm not stopping for this guy," Chris muttered, steering slightly to the left to go around him. And that's when the man moved. A sharp step sideways, back in front of the car. I yelled, "Jesus, stop!" We skidded to a halt inches from him. Chris slammed the horn, shouted through the window, nothing. Then slowly, the man raised his hand and pointed behind us. Back at the road we came. I opened my door, half thinking we should help him, but something in me screamed not to let him in. The hair on my arm stood straight up, and a cold breeze went down my spine. Just reverse and go around," I whispered. "Seriously, let's just don't talk to him." Chris agreed. He put the car in reverse and we backed carefully up, trying to get wide around the man, and we continued. In the rearview mirror I watched him stand there, unmoving until he faded into the night. We didn't talk for a while, until about 10 minutes later Chris said, "That was around mile marker 313, right?" "Yeah, why?" I muttered. "Just remember that." And then another 30 minutes passed, nothing but darkness in the endless road. And then another figure. Same hoodie, same jeans, standing motionless like before, in the center of the road. "No way," I breathed through cracked teeth. Chris slowed again. "It's not him, it can't be him." But it was. The same face, same dead stare. Then he pointed again behind us. This time we didn't hesitate. We didn't even stop. We swerved around and kept driving. Except when we passed another figure, this time 5 miles later. Then another. And another. Always the same man, always pointing behind us. I know this is gonna sound crazy, I said to Chris, but I think we're looping. I said, heart pounding. Something's clearly wrong here. Chris looked down at the GPS. We still showed as moving forward. No turns, no repeats, but the mile markers kept going down. 312, 311, and then 310. I could have sworn we've already passed them in the right order before. But at 3:07 in the morning, we passed mile marker 313 again. And he was still there. But this time he was smiling. That was the worst part. Chris stepped on it, not blinking, not even batting an eye at the man. We're not stopping this time. I don't care if the engine explodes, he muttered. The road stretched on endlessly, the same songs repeated over and over again like a broken record. The snacks were gone. Our phones died around the same time. Full battery 1 second, black screens the next. And then we saw it. Off to the side of the road, a diner. Lou's 24-hour diner. Bright lights, neon sign flickering. A blessed Otis. We pulled in, practically stumbled inside. A woman behind the counter looked up and smiled. Coffee? We nodded, sat shaking. I don't know what's happening, I said. We saw something out there. A man keeps showing up. She nodded slowly. Mile marker 313? We froze as her gaze met ours. You're not the first, she said. He was hit on that road in 1974 hitchhiking. The driver never stopped. Now he shows up to warn people. You see him once, you're fine. Twice, you're in trouble. 3 times, well... She paused. What happens the 3rd time? Chris muttered out. Her eyes darkened. He takes one. Silence filled the diner, as if everyone at once just stopped what they were doing and focused themselves on us. And then I noticed something. A framed photo on the diner wall. Staff of the month, October 2021. It was a picture of Chris smiling, and a paper hat. My stomach dropped. Chris? He stood up confused. That's not... What the hell? The waitress didn't move. Sometimes the road keeps one. Sometimes the diner does. I blinked and Chris was gone. Just gone. No sound, no flash, no empty seat, nothing. Full cup of coffee still steaming where he once sat. I screamed, ran out, back to the car, but it just simply wouldn't start. When I looked up, the road was gone. Only desert in all directions. But I'm still here. The coffee never gets cold. The jukebox plays the same 6 songs over and over and over again. And sometimes cars pull in. Sometimes someone sees me. Sometimes they leave, but eventually they always come back. We all came back. Especially if they've seen him 3 times.